You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hello and welcome. I am so grateful that you pressed play on this episode today, and I know that I say this with pretty much every opening, but I want to specifically acknowledge you choosing this episode to listen to today because it is so very special for so many reasons for both myself and my beautiful friend that I am having here today, Liene Ciguze. She and I have been connected for a few years now, and we actually speak of one another as besties. We do communicate and connect weekly, a couple of times a week if we can, and she is originally from Latvia, currently living in Moscow, Russia, with her husband and two boys. What we're going to talk about today is her life after child loss because she did lose her first child. And she and I have been talking for, oh my goodness, I want to say at least a year or close to a year before I even knew this about her, before I even knew this aspect of her. So I want to simply express how amazing it is for her to have shown up for you and for everyone else here today to have this conversation. And you'll hear me say this. I asked her many times to have this conversation with me because I knew that it would be so very helpful and so very real for so many parents out there, not just moms, but dads too, who have to grapple with a loss that is indescribable. And I want to share how simply amazing it is on her part to really be open, honest, real, and vulnerable on this episode. May it help you. May it heal you. May you find some semblance of peace if needed. Please share this with any parent you know who may benefit from hearing Liene's story and her current approach, because that is mostly what we are going to talk about. Life after. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let's get to it. Welcome, my sweet friend Liene, my bestie. What lights you up?
Hi.
What lights you up, my friend?
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I have to answer this question for the second time.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. I don't believe that what lights you up is the same for any person in any given day. And you are my first repeat guest, which,
Yay.
hello, yay. I mean, let's celebrate that. However, the last time we shared a conversation here, I don't know. What lights you up today? What lights you up right now in this moment in this time of your life?
That's good way to put it. And because I hardly remember what I said last time, actually.
Which is great.
But if I have to say what lights me up today, it's interesting that I actually lately had this. It's a very personal realization about choice. And as coaches, we are taught that we have so much choice in what we think and how we show up in the world, and we teach that to our clients. But somehow, personally, I just dawned on me, like, very recently, that I do have a choice. I do have a choice in so many matters, and actually, my choices impact the people around me so much, without even trying to change them, without asking anything from them, but just by me making different choices. And that's just been so wonderful, and it just has filled me up, like, with so much joy and energy. And oh my God, it's been so great that we do have choices.
That's what I'm talking about, the joy and the energy that just fills your body, the energy, because we think about joy as always being just exuberance and just unabated happiness. That's not necessarily true. I have been challenged to look at that differently myself recently, and I'm not sure that I am in a space to actually explain what that means. However, I appreciate you bringing that into the conversation in terms of what lights you up. It's like just this feeling of joy and knowing that I have choices.
Yeah.
I have choices. And not even not even impacting the other people, but just starting with yourself, the choices that you make throughout the day can impact you too. So good. So wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me the second time. So I guess it went well the first time.
For our listeners' awareness, I don't even remember when the last time we recorded a conversation.
That was a while ago
and published. It's been a little while. It was definitely last year. I don't know, maybe at least 6 or 8 months ago, kind of thing. But you and I actually meet at least twice a week. On a normal week, we meet twice a week, so we talk all the time. That's why it's funny to both of us to be like, well, I don't know, when is the last time we quote unquote talked? That was Wednesday.
and Friday before that,
and then Friday before that. So it's been a beautiful thing, and it's been an evolving relationship. But here's the thing, what we're going to talk about today is the one thing that you have kept me at arm's length on for a little while. I'm just going to put that out there, and I'm just going to say, to be fair and to set the stage for this conversation, this is not an easy conversation for you to have. If it's not an easy conversation for you to have for someone that you have met with at least a couple of times a week for 2 years. For 2 years, we have a pretty intimate relationship. We know one another's darkest moments for the most part. And what I know of you is that you have 2 sons, ages 6 and 5.
5,
6 and 5. Oh, I got it right. I keep trying to age them. I keep trying to make them older. All right, they are 6 and 5. You have 2 sons, 6 and 5. And what I also know is that before the 2 sons that you have, you had your firstborn, David. And you lost him at age 7.
Yeah.
So now we are kind of evolving into that place. If we are talking about like Liene's transition into her own healing messages, we are finally starting to transition into that space of, I'm ready to talk about this, because you have literally created a podcast called life after child loss.
And
And
it took me a while to get there.
it took you a very long time to get there because your original podcast was about, being a confident lawyer. I don't remember the title of it. I don't want to be dismissive when I say that, to be honest with you, I didn't really care because it felt like that wasn't really what was pulling your soul.
And I guess me too.
Right.
That's what I did last summer when I finally followed my calling.
Yeah. So we talked about it just in context. Over the past couple of years, we've only brushed the surface of context. And you've always said to me, well, I'm not ready to have that conversation. And the fact that you now have a podcast to help other moms, other parents with life after child loss speaks volumes. The fact that you are ready to have this conversation with me right here, right now, speaks volumes. I am ready. Tell me the things. Tell me the things you have been afraid to tell me over the past 2 years. Let's start with how you lost David. Can we just talk about that just in a very brief, because you do talk about that in your first episode.
I do, and the story is out there. It's on my podcast. I also shared it on my Instagram feed. I guess, it was a big thing to tell it publicly for the first time. So I guess it's easier now. So it's going to be actually March. 9th of March, it's going to be 8 years already since it happened. So basically he was killed in a park where he went to ride his bike. And there was this recreational tourist train. It's like a thing that it's basically a car that has looks like a train and pulls like bunch of wagons for tourists where they can sit, and they've been taken around the park. So this thing just ran over him basically, and he died instantly. I wasn't there when it happened. We went to the park, all three of us, David's, me and my husband, and I left them there. We had a nice walk, and he was riding his bike. It was the first time he rode his bike after the winter, because it was March 9, and it's still winter. But for some reason that year, the day was very warm, unusually warm. And so we went just for him to ride a bicycle. And we all three spent some time there. And I actually left to get home to start lunch. And I left them there for a bit more. And he never came back.
I don't know if I realized that part of your story, that you weren't actually there.
I wasn't there. I didn't see it happening.
So this was 8 years ago?
Yeah, it's going to be 8 years, 8 years this March.
So this is what you are talking about. It's like, I don't want to dig into the absolute devastation that must come with something of that level happening, because you and I have had this conversation before too. I don't know if, let me just back up a little bit. We're talking about this happened in Latvia, correct? This happened in Latvia. You are of Latvian descent. You are currently living in Moscow. But so you speak several languages, but this is why I'm bringing this up, is that we've had this conversation before. There is no, at least in the English language, there is no term for the loss of a child. There's no word for that. We have widow, If you lose your spouse, we have orphan when you lose your parents, but we do not have a word. We don't even have a word in our language for losing a child. Do you have a word in your language or in other languages that you know? Are there words?
We don't have a word for a parent that has lost their child in Latvian, and I don't think there is a name for it even in Russian, and Russian being like a very rich language. So I guess it's globally that there is no such word.
There's no word. See, I want to sit with that for a minute because I think that's very powerful. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but I think it's very powerful. It's like we can't even bring ourselves as humans to assign a word to what that even means. Like, what does that even mean? What does the experience mean? So that is why I am so grateful that you are having this conversation now on your new podcast of life after child loss. And that's what I really want to talk about, because it isn't about that, oh, I've moved on, I have my quote unquote replacement kids. You never forget your firstborn. You never forget him. As a matter of fact, he comes up in a lot of our conversations.
Yeah.
He does.
And he's the one that made me mom.
Yeah.
And that's just so special.
Yeah.
And I love my other two boys, but I'll never forget David. It's and sometimes, me, I'm feeling guilty about many things, and I also used to feel guilty when there were sometimes days when I wouldn't like actively remember him. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, am I forgetting him? Just freaking out. But and it's true, I'm not thinking about him all day, every day, all the time, but he's always there. He's part of the family, and he's part of the family to the extent that my two boys, they know about David's. He's also in our conversations. We watch pictures and videos together, and my Henriks now has learned some silly things that David did in his videos. So he's even impacting my middle son's behavior to the extent. And so he's always there with us, and he's still part of the family, and that's not going to change. So I really don't like the idea like that you might have like replacement children. It's not, then you might say that you have a replacement life.
Yeah.
It's just not true. It's just a life. It's just other children that we end up having or not having. And you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So I wasn't sure that I'm going to have more children I wanted, but I got lucky. I have two of them. I wish I could have more, but it is what it is.
Well, here's the thing. I used that term. I used that term intentionally, replacement children. Not that I believe it for myself, but just to kind of generalize what our audience might think in terms of what happens with the psyche. And of course, everyone is different. Everyone is unique. This is not about, okay, this is what worked for me. This is, I am sure there are parents who have lost children who just will not ever be able to either A, recover from it, or B, think of having a different life, or a life in this way with other children. Not that they are replacements, not that they are at all. But I put that out there intentionally because I want to address any concerns, if you will, that might be floating around out there about, well, your, I actually love, by the way, the fact that you just referred to Henrix as your middle child. I love that. So Henrix is your oldest living child, and he was born after David's. And I love the fact that you also have this expression of everyone knows he is a part of our family. David's is a part of our family, even though he is no longer with us. They know of him. They know who he is. They know of his spirit. That, tell me how you got there. Tell me how you decided to go there. Because you could have said, well, we just will never speak of him again because it's too painful.
I don't know. I always knew that painful would be not to talk about him. How would I not? Would I just couldn't. I know it was, and maybe because I don't know, we got a lot of help after we lost him. Psychologists and pastor and coaching, and for some reason it was always clear that to grieve, to move through the grief, you want to talk, you want your son still be part of your life. And we looked at his pictures, and we always remembering him, and we did like remember silly things he did. So we like all the jokes, and they were kind of still floating around. He wasn't there physically, but his impact, his presence was still there. Like the things he said, like so. And when the other children came around, it was just natural that we will tell them everything. And we are also going to cemetery together, and there are some things that are left over from David's that now the boys are wearing, like backpacks and hockey sticks, and they know that those things belong to David's, and now they're using them. So it's like, it's just this open communication.
It's giving energy. It's giving life force energy to his memory, right? Not only just to talk of him and speak of him and all of that, but also to wear his backpacks, wear his clothes, do that and understand this came from him. That is beautiful, because kids are so resilient. They really are. We are. I mean, we as humans, we are resilient. And I think many times, and you and I have had some conversations lately about inner child work and all of that. I mean, so it's like we still have this inner child living within us who just really is so wise and so resilient and so ready to just express and move through the world with full knowledge. So I think that this has been a long-winded way of saying I feel that. I feel that expressing our emotions in front of our children, with our children, having conversations with our children is the healthiest thing we can possibly do for them and for us. And for us. It's like there are times that I feel like I don't want to talk about a certain thing. And then my son will be like pressing me, and I'm like, okay, we got to go here. It's not about me. It's not about what I'm feeling right now. It's about how can I express my love for everything that happened in my life, even the hardest parts of it. How can I express that to those children right now when they're asking me with their wide eyes and saying,
yeah,
help me understand, even when you don't.
And that, yeah. And then it just like comes down to, okay, you ground yourself, you find your inner core, you breathe, and you just do it.
Yeah.
And because like in our case, our family history, we lost Davids, and my youngest son is adopted. We could have so many secrets.
Yeah.
We could have like these things hanging over our heads and not talk about them. But what good would it do?
I'm so grateful that you brought that up. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, you have lost a child before the other two were born. So we could just pretend that it never happened.
Yeah.
But then that would be denying your own emotions and your husband's emotions and all of that. It would be denying all of that even existed. You could pretend. You had the opportunity to pretend that David's never existed.
Yeah. Start clean.
Yeah. And then with Francis, your youngest, whom you've adopted, you could also pretend, who young enough adopted it too, young enough to, of course, be groomed and conditioned into whatever you want him to believe. Of course. I mean, again, I'm not trying to use those words as like they're bad. They're bad words. I think that all of us do it, especially parents. I think that we all kind of do it, subliminally, unintentionally, all of those things. So the fact that you're, the fact that you are expressing child loss, adoption, this is how we are forming our family, this is who we are, and you're having those conversations at such a young age is amazing. It's amazing.
And it's not difficult. I guess like now with this conversation, yes, I needed some time and so what, but like once you start talking, it gets easier. It just becomes, you normalize it.
Yeah.
But when you have this big secret and then like to burst the bubble for the very first time, that is complicated. But if you don't create the bubble, then it just flows. It's there.
Yeah. That's really good. If you don't just like, if your secret is not contained within a bubble that you burst, that just explodes out of
Either
you.
you burst it or it explodes at some point unexpectedly, in the worst possible moment, usually.
Yeah, because I mean that's how this works. I mean, we repress our emotions, we repress our grief, we think of all of these things. And again, I think with your circumstance specifically, it's like, how do you get over, how do you get past, if you even do, maybe you don't, how do you get past the why did this happen to me? Why did I have such a wonderful human in my life and I had to lose him? It's at 7. Why? Do you get past that? Or is that something you still ask yourself?
No, that is one thing actually I have found my peace with, because, and I guess here is the concept, I believe, that things happen for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And many of the things are just not in our control. And death and life, that's definitely not in our control. And humans come into this world and have very different lives, different lengths of life, different circumstances. We do have struggles, each of us, and I guess we each of us comes into this world with certain mission and certain tasks and certain things we are doing, struggling, achieving, and I guess I chose. Speaking of choices, I chose to believe that David came into this world for this amount of time, and that was always meant to be like this. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy that I got to meet him, that he made me mom, that he taught me what it means to love someone unconditionally. Because before that, I didn't know such thing existed, and I would always choose to do it once more if I had a chance. Like if I knew that that would be the end of it, that it's only for 7 years, I would still choose it, because those 7 years, they were amazing. They taught me so much, and I would choose it all over any day. And yes, I had all the dreams and I had all the plans for him, and I never expected that I'm gonna outlive him, but it was meant to be like this, exactly like this.
All right, so I just have to gather myself because I'm crying just a little bit. I'm sorry. But I love that. I love that. I love looking at that from every aspect of any loss that you have. I mean, I have felt the same thing, and I have honestly thought, I have felt the same thing at losing my dad at 27. I was just like, just filled with this gratitude of, oh, I'm so grateful that I got to have him in my life for any amount of time. I got to have him in my life for like my entire school career and until I became an adult. I mean, that was freaking amazing. So I can understand how some might look at your particular scenario and think, okay, all you get is 7 years and you are willing to do that again. You are actually willing to relive the trauma of knowing he's not coming back from that visit to the park. You're actually willing to relive that just to have the experience of having him for 7 years. That is healing, my friend. That is healing. That is healing. And it may not be like, okay, we're done. Oh, here's the end. Here's the finish line of my healing process. Here's the finish line.
There is no finish line.
I don't think there is. I really don't think there is. I don't think there's a finish line for grief. I don't think there's a finish line for healing. I think those things are both just you don't know when it's going to hit you. But when you talk about your experience with David's and just repeating over and over again, he made me a mom. He's the one that made me a mom, and that'll never change. That'll never change. He's always going to be that. He's going to be that spirit. He's going to be that person for you. And the fact that you incorporate him into the lives of your boys today who never knew him is again a beautiful thing.
And I truly believe that they know him now.
Yeah,
they really know, because like they've heard so much about him and they've seen him. We have jokes that we share, and I really do think they know him.
That's great. That is great.
Let's talk. And just to clarify, I'm in no way saying that, like, that this is something like that, this is like a gift or something like this happening to me. No,
Oh my gosh,
it's
no.
the most terrible experience I went through, but still, like the time I had with him, it was worse every minute, even though it was shorter than I expected.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but it was magical. It was really magical.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because I don't ever want to come across as, oh, well, it's, the death of a loved one is ultimately a gift, because it is ultimately. However, you may or may not be ready to see that in the moment, and that's okay too. It's okay. You can be angry, you can be furious, you can be afraid to talk about it because of all of the things that are happening in your own mind about what will everyone think of me if I say I'm at peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
What will everyone
Mm-hmm.
think of me if I say I'm at peace with it? Will they think, it's that's what's coming up for me. That may or may not be true for you, but just the fact that we are
Yeah.
finally having this conversation, you and I, when you have put me off for 2 years, I've known this.
Was it really 2 years?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
known this for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
And, you know, by the way, I'm not trying to call you out or anything, but the only reason I found out that you had that podcast of life after child loss was because you posted it in a group. You didn't tell me. We talked the day before. Are you kidding me? We talked the day before and you did not tell me about it.
Yeah. No, I guess it was it was a scary thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about now. Let's talk about why it was scary. Why was it scary for you to tell anyone? And it's not about me, but I mean, like, tell anyone. I mean, I feel like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, oh, well, it was less vulnerable. Not less vulnerable. It was vulnerable either way, but maybe safer. Maybe it felt safer to just post this in a group of, over 2,000, mostly strangers, knowing that there's a percentage of those humans that maybe it's quote unquote safer to post about this in a group of strangers than it is to have a conversation face to face with the people who love you. Tell me,
Interesting.
is that true? I don't know. It's just coming to me.
And of course, because like I the people that are in my life, that are my friends, that are my close ones, that are like people that I love, of course their opinion matters more. And I guess,
does it though? No, I'm going to challenge that. Challenge that. Does their opinion matter more, or is it like, again, just thinking about the safety of posting this in a group of, again, mostly strangers? I can post this in a group of mostly strangers, or I can post it. If the alternative was, I can post it in a Facebook group of 20 people, like the people that I'm closest to, that I know are going to see this. Everybody's going to see it because there's only 20 of them. Or I can post it in a group of 2,000 people that don't even know me. They don't know me. They don't know who I am. I'm just saying, I'm going to challenge that.
For some reason, it was easier for me to post it within strangers.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And
of
why?
Course.
And I guess it matters what the people I love think of me, and I guess it matters. Like, for example, like I know that some of my friends listen to my podcast, and that makes me really really uneasy. Like I know a good friend of mine in London, she listens to my podcast to almost every episode, and I really worry that, like, okay, how is, because I know she knows me, I know she knew my son, her son was my son's best friend, and for some reason it's so much more personal, and
It's intimate. There's an
it's intimate, and this
intimacy.
is different level of vulnerability. And by
Yes.
nature I'm a very introvert person.
Yeah.
Like now these last now 3 whatever years, when since I have become coach, I have changed tremendously. The things I've done, the level of vulnerability I've allowed in my life. This is huge, because I used to be this private person that I wasn't even on social media. I was there, but I was just following. I was the creepy one that was just reading and never like shared anything. So I was like totally living in my own world and not getting out there, and just like, yeah. And the things that I'm doing now, for me, this is huge. Maybe it's nothing for someone who is, I know, very outgoing, and yeah, but for me, this is huge. So yeah, it's a big step.
I don't know if you can see. I will, of course, share the video back with you. We are only going to publish audio unless you decide that maybe we can do some clips here and there. But I want you to recognize in this moment, because we can see one another right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to recognize in this moment that just a little while ago, you literally lit up when you were thinking about, when you were talking about, when you were sharing your thoughts about how far I've come in the past 3 years, right? And I can see that in you. I can see that in you too, because I've known you that long, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that you are kind of breaking out of this space of being that, okay, I'm an introvert. Maybe you're not. Maybe you just decided to align with that notion early in life because it was easier,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe you decided to start a podcast for lawyers who needed more confidence because it was easier than talking about child loss, life after child loss. It was probably easier to go there. I know it was. I know
I
it
know it
was.
definitely was.
I know it was
And
because I know that you talked about that in the very beginning. You talked about, well, I could go here or I could go there. But I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm
yeah.
not ready. That's what you said. I'm not ready. And that's fine. You weren't ready.
Mm,
Now you are.
I
And
am.
and I think that what is so beautiful about it, I want to just circle back to the notion of, okay, you didn't tell the people that are closest to you. There's a reason for that. Those are the people that are most likely to stop us in our tracks, because those are the ones that are going to say, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And what about, that kind of thing. They're usually the ones that love us the most, are the ones that tend to hold us back because they love us the most, because they want to protect us and that kind of thing.
Mm,
Are you sure you're ready? Right? I can't imagine
mm.
myself saying that. However, maybe your friend in London, or maybe she would have said, you sure you're ready? I
Are you
don't know.
sure? Are you sure? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they
No.
have been asking me, like, are you sure? Are you okay with that? Isn't that too painful?
Yeah.
And
And that's the question. Is it too painful now to talk about? Because you're about what, 10, 15 episodes in now? I mean, you're
yeah,
you're
13.
13 episodes in, moving right
Yeah,
along, just moving on.
it's not. It's not too painful.
It's not too painful.
It's actually quite energizing. It really gives me energy.
Mm,
And although sometimes it brings up painful memories,
of course. Yeah.
but those memories, they resurface anyway. You never
Yeah.
know when you are going to bump into another one.
Right.
And so I guess in that sense, it's not even, I can't even blame the podcast and the work that I'm doing. But yeah, but it's interesting. You mentioned that like maybe the people closest to me, they kind of want to keep me safe, and so I actually have to admire my husband. When I told him that this is what I want to do, he was actually like supporting and said like, okay, really, like, yeah, if that's the thing you want to do, go and do it, and I support you. And he's been following me and liking my posts and supporting me in any way he can, and he's really all in with this. So I was kind of scared what he's gonna say, because that's so also close to home for him, and but he's been my biggest supporter.
That excuse me, that is wonderful, that is beautiful, and it's like turning pain into purpose, right? Turning pain into purpose. And I feel like the more of us that do that, turn our pain into purpose and show others that it's not such a big scary thing to speak it out loud, to speak it out loud, to say what it is, and to, as you said, just get vulnerable, get real, get raw, that kind of thing. I mean, that's part of the healing process, and in part of your healing. And I keep saying feel like, when I really want to say think, but I don't think that is self-serving. I think that is answering the call. Like, that is answering the call within your soul. Because when I think back to the fact that you said a couple of years ago, well, I could do confident lawyers, or I could do, um, you know, child loss. And I'm like, those are two very different things, but those are two of your experiences. Those are just, and just two, and there are many more. There are many more. Right? These are two ways that I can show the world, or that I can share myself with the world. But that life after child loss thing seemed so far removed. When you first talked about it, it seemed so far removed. And so it's like, yeah, I'm not ready. And to finally take that leap and be ready is such an homage to David's life here with us, right? With all of it. I haven't known him, but I already feel a part of him too, having talked about him just a few times with you, just ever so briefly, and listening to your podcast, which is so much different than where you started. So much different than where you started. Because this is your voice. This is your truth. This is your experience. This is what has happened with me. I want to share this. I want to put it out there. I have to reveal to heal. Same with others. And knowing that you are an advocate, you are someone who can help those who have experienced such a loss, because it's very hard to describe. There are no words. There are no words.
And I guess, yeah, it's, you can't even, I would even say that you can't really understand what it means unless you have felt it. And it doesn't mean that you can only help people in child loss once you have experience, because there are many amazing therapists that do amazing work, and that I have never experienced this. But for me, I guess it really adds the value. And but when also now you were talking, I was also thinking that it's funny, but I guess the most scary thing for me, now that I'm doing this work, is actually to say out loud to other moms, to other people, that actually I'm okay now. Because it's so culturally accepted to not to be okay after child loss. Understandably, right away, no one is, because just this pain is just something you have to experience, and no one is okay right after. But then, like, there are still like people that say 5, 10, 20, 50 years after the loss, I'm not okay, and I'll never be. But the story I am telling, and this is actually true, that I do love my life, and I'm having a good life, and to the extent I am happy about my life, despite that I have lost my David.
Yeah.
And also because I knew him, and he gave me all the things, and I guess that part of is the most scary to me, to tell actually that, you can be okay. It doesn't mean that your life is over.
Mm. Mm. Why is that the scariest part? I'm very curious. I'm very curious. Why is that the scariest part? I cannot identify with losing a living child. I can identify with a few ectopic pregnancies, which I've shared both on the podcast and with you. Those were devastating to me. Those were devastating for years.
Yeah.
So just the idea of it. So losing a living, breathing child. Tell me just a little bit more about why the scariest part is to say that you're finally okay with that.
I guess because it's easier not to be. It's easier to just give up and stay stuck, and just basically say, okay, my life is ruined, that's it. It just,
yeah.
But and this was a choice I made at some point, that I'm not giving up on my life, that whether I will have more children or whether I'll have no children, but I'm gonna do something with my life, and I'm gonna build something. I'm not gonna let this tragic event mean that my life is over, because I'm also here for a reason.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes.
And that is sometimes like that's the identity thing, that so many moms, they identify their lives with their children. But we each have our own life, although children are so important. I can't even say how important they are. We love them and we would do everything for them, but at the same time, they are given to us for a limited time, just to bring them up and keep them safe and teach them all the things, and then they go on and live their own lives, but we always have the responsibility also to still live our own life.
Yes.
And not to become totally immersed into our children's lives.
Yeah.
Does it explain it?
Yes. Does that work? Oh, it's so
acceptable.
It's so beautiful. Oh, is it? Yeah. It's beautiful. I think when you listen back to this episode, you're going to hear yourself from a whole new light. And I think it's going to be wonderful. I really do. I really, really do. Do you have I'm just going to, I'm pulling this out of thin air, but do you have a certain episode of the 13 that you've put out that you really, really like the most, that is really?
Oh my God, that's such a difficult question.
Yeah, I don't know. It just came to me. So, like, hey, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you this. What do you think?
I guess I I don't know if that's my favorite episode, but I was quite inspired by the Christmas episode because before Christmas everyone does the Christmas episode, the holidays,
Yeah.
and initially I also thought that I'm do like this holiday guide, how to survive and things, and then I thought like, no, F it. I'm not gonna say what to do and what not to do.
F
And
it.
basically,
What?
fuck it.
Thank you. We say all the words here. That's what we
We do
do.
say, fuck it. I'm not gonna give you this Christmas guide. Come
Yeah.
on. Just decide and change your mind and I don't know, and feel it and just live it and do it for you and do as you wish and actually like have these holidays for yourself and decide from how you feel, not like what other people want you to do. And I'm not going to give you the guide like how to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was, I think, a good episode.
Do you know how to do the things you don't want to do? Don't fucking do them.
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, but sit back and question why you are doing them. Who are you trying to please in the in the end result? Because you're not trying to please your dad's son. He's already happy with his soul. I can assure you is completely enthralled with everything that you're doing in his honor. I love it, love it. Oh my gosh. You did so good. You did so good because I just had that I had this idea to ask you that question about your favorite episode. And I even then I thought if somebody asked me that, I would be like, what are you doing right now? You did so good.
That was what I thought. Like I should ask you this question if I get a chance.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, my answer to that is, wish we could turn back time kind of thing. I think that episode, not only because the stats are like that episode is almost at the very top of the over 100 episodes I have out there right now. Wish we could turn back time. That one, for whatever reason, that episode is the one. And when I did it, I really was coming from a place of, yeah, that's what we do. We're constantly thinking. And I think that this ties in so nicely to what we're talking about too. We're constantly thinking about, oh, wish I could turn back time to the good old days, right? Like when everything was beautiful, when everything was perfect, when we were 7 years old ourselves, and we just didn't have anything to worry about, right? We just didn't have anything to worry about. And that's the thing, is that David's never had anything to worry about. He didn't.
No, well, kids they find things to be upset about, but
they do.
But that's just life.
That they do. But I think that
in big scheme of things,
he
had everything he needed. He was loved. He was healthy. He was just enjoying his life, and he was a happy kid.
And he knows that. I guarantee you, his soul knows that. It's like, okay, this was a blip on the radar experience of mine. Oh God, it was a blip on the radar, but oh my God, how beautiful it was, and how many other humans is my 7 years of experience on this world impacting now. Many, 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 because you are going to continue to talk about him.
Yeah.
You are going to continue to share your experience. And it is just going to be a ripple effect of nothing but love, light, and beauty. And some shadows. Because we can't talk about these things without talking about the shadows. But we are going to talk about those things, and we are not going to keep them hidden.
Mm-mm.
And we are going to express the beauty of the people who have come and gone within our lives. That's what we're going to do.
Definitely.
All right. Any parting words? Where can people connect with you if they want to talk about life after child loss?
So my podcast is out there. If anyone wants to listen to it, Life After Child Loss. And I'm also on Instagram, and my handle is Life After a Child Loss.
Okay.
And then I have a website, coachliene.com.
Coach Liene. So, yes.
Coach
love
Liene.
It. Love
it. Yeah.
I will add all of your links to the show notes. I highly recommend your Life After Child Loss podcast is fantastic. I know you're going to start doing your own interviews here soon.
Yes, I recorded the first one yesterday.
What? I'm excited. I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Because I really do want to connect with other moms that have had this experience to let them, to tell them their story on my podcast, and also to see to show how they did it, how they created the life after the child loss, what they did, what worked, what didn't, what are they struggling with. And I think we need to tell these stories as much as we can.
We do. We need to shine a light on those dark corners. I talk about that shit all the time, and I mean it's not, and it isn't shit. It's life. It's truth.
It's life. This is part of life.
It's truth. I mean, sometimes we go through some very hard, excruciating things, and sometimes those wounds are far too deep to simply say, I'm just going to change my thoughts about it and be happy. I mean, there's more to it than that. There are depths and ranges to our emotions, our feelings, and the amount of love we can give. There are so many depths to that. So I thank you, my friend, for putting it all out there.
And thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be on your podcast for the second time, and I loved our conversation. I think even better than the first one.
Me too. Always, like every conversation just keeps getting better with us. That's just how it works. All right, I love you.
Love you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Yet another episode where I get to cry openly. Oh my goodness. But in a good way, in a healing way, in a way that is, we don't want to. We need to, though. We need to feel our emotions. We need to feel these things. And I am just ever so grateful for Liene sharing this here with me and with you, with everyone, with the world. Please check out her new podcast, her latest podcast, Life After Child Loss. It is really packing a punch for me. It is. She's very, very succinct in her lessons and her sharing. And she's also very real. So I hope that you appreciate this as much as I do. And be sure to check out show notes for links to connect with Liene. She is a beautiful, beautiful spirit, an amazing person, and just encourages me every day to light up and shine on.